So last weekend I attended Fan Expo Denver, which is a 4-day Comic-Con that's held in Denver, Colorado. I've only been to this con twice before. Once was in 2021 and it was to meet the Ruby cast, and then in 2024 where I competed in their cosplay contest. So this year I went back. So I headed to the convention around midday on Thursday for day one. I was wearing my vault suit and I was mostly just interested in getting oriented at the con and figuring out what they were selling in the dealer's hall and kind of just spending the day checking it out. I ended up going to a lot of really fun panels, including one hosted by my friends Heirloom and Herringbone Cosplay, who were previous Best in Show winners at Fan Expo Denver, as well as a weathering panel that was hosted by Sohaven, which is the local fabric store now that Joanne is dead. Rest in peace. There were 2 additional D&D panels that I thought were really interesting. So one was a D&D panel that was structured so that you didn't need to know the rules but could still play live. And how this was done is that the audience member got a card with their class on it and a short list of all the actions they could do, and they would tell the DM what they wanted to do, and then the DM and the player would both pull cards from a deck of cards, and whoever got the higher number was able to either accomplish their action as the player or deny the player's action as the DM. I thought it was really unique and like kind of a fun minigame way to play D&D. I also went to a D&D improv panel. A lot of D&D that day, huh? The D&D improv panel was super interesting. I at first thought it was just gonna be D&D themed improv, like cold open, honey, there's a beholder on the front lawn. But what it actually ended up being was that the improv group would ask audience members to submit their characters from their campaigns and give an example of something funny that happened in that campaign. And then they would build the roleplay scene around that suggestion. So of course I volunteered stories from a campaign I just finished, and being in the front row and very enthusiastically and excitedly waving my hand, I was called on. The troupe was really funny, and it was hilarious to see the scenes they came up with based on the very limited information that I volunteered, which was really just name, class, and I threw in accent, and it became a whole bit.
You're gonna promise to do his tax returns. You're gonna do them incorrectly. Okay.
This con is not a late night con, or it's at least not designed to be, so I headed home around 8 p.m. that day. Friday, I dressed as Jester from The Mighty Nine, which is a Critical Role campaign, and I spent the day mostly just seeing friends and kind of wandering around and doing shopping. We had a group photo shoot that was full of shenanigans, which included yoinking a person who was walking by dressed as a mimic from the con floor and just real-time asking them to join our photo shoot, to playing with the fan our photographer brought, to scheming and shipping and just generally goofing off, which is very in character for the Mighty Nine if you don't know. At the end of the day, I went to a workshop that taught you how to dance in Bridgerton style that was hosted by my friend Clockwork Fairy, and it was super fun, albeit sort of chaotic. But I would definitely dance again. At this point on Friday, it was probably again about 8 p.m. and I was really nervous for the contest on Saturday. So I went home and I did a quick run through of how all my Kyoshi garments fit me, just to make sure that everything was good to go. And actually I ended up adding some more fake dirt to Kyoshi, so good thing I did that. On Saturday, I got to the con around 11 a.m. and the parking garage was already packed. So I knew that the con itself was going to be packed. Pro tip, you can book your parking in advance on an app to make sure that you don't have to drive around looking for a parking lot the day of. I better have good tips for going to cons at this point. This is like my 80th one of all time. So when I got to the con, I went through the first phase of the 3 phases of a cosplay contest. So the first phase is called prejudging, where you have a private meeting with the cosplay contest judges for 3 to 5 minutes and explain how you made the cosplay that you did. I think I did fairly well, though it felt like I was just info dumping on the judges about all the things I learned about historical Japanese clothing. In the afternoon, I helped out with a live drawing panel where cosplayers would pose for 1 to 3 minutes and artists would be able to take time sketching to practice how they shape figures and do all kinds of poses. I don't know, I'm not an artist, so I don't know how they did it. But it was really cool to see everybody bring their sketchbooks and get drawing practice in. Someone was drawing with lipstick, which is absolutely, like, so creative. I was in awe. Then it was contest time, so they funneled us through the back service corridors which, fun fact, is actually how they get all the celebrities between the different rooms. They ride on a little golf cart and they just go up and down these backroom looking hallways. The very nice people from the Colorado Academy of Cosplay actually were giving everybody last minute snacks and water so that people were properly hydrated before the contest, so shout out. And then they funneled us to the real backstage area, which was a bunch of curtains, and we were able to get an okay view of the contest for the most part. I was, at this point, convinced I was going to trip on stage, so I was pretty nervous about the whole thing, but it was time to hand over my phone to my handler, Applebox Props, and it was showtime. So here's a couple of the contestants from the event itself. And then it was my turn, and I had so many friends in the audience that day that were very enthusiastic about my participation. And I managed to get through my 3 poses for the onstage portion of the contest. I was so nervous when I was hitting one of the poses that I accidentally yelled, which kind of worked out because Kyoshi has got kind of an imposing, powerful thing going on. And then after my turn, we shuffled backstage so the halftime show could play and the judges could deliberate. And once I had cooled off a little bit, I was able to talk shop with all the other cosplayers backstage, so learn about their cosplays and their crafting techniques, which is, like, honestly my favorite part. It's also nice to befriend people because then you kind of know who you're cheering for when they're called for an award. That's the #1 life hack for a cosplay contest, just befriend everybody so you're always happy no matter who wins. So then it was awards time, and there are 3 main categories in the contest that loosely follow the number of awards you've won previously, and that's beginners, journeyman, masters, kind of scaling from no awards to a handful of awards. The awards I qualified for were the minor awards, which are kind of smaller judges-based recognition awards. I qualified for a best in my category, which was the masters category, or I qualified for any overall awards, which would be like an audience favorite or a best in show. And so we had made a group chat before the contest for some of the contestants to get to know each other beforehand. So when they were calling people's awards, I was able to clock who it was that I had spoken to before and sent progress pictures back and forth with, and that was pretty cool. And so I was pretty happy to see some familiar faces get awards. So my line buddy, the person I was next to in the lineup, Life Wish Cosplay, got Best in Masters. A friend that I had judged before in another contest got Best in Show Runner-Up. And so I'm sitting there as all the awards have been introduced besides the Best in Show. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the last award. And I'm thinking like, okay, I'm probably gonna go home empty-handed, which naturally, every contestant makes their peace with that idea before they enter the contest because the caliber of craftsmanship is so high. So at that point, they start hinting at the Best in Show before they introduce it.
This cosplayer was very historically accurate.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And I start looking up and down the line of contestants to see if I can pick out who in the lineup had historical techniques. And then they call for the drum roll, and I'm like, wait a minute, I had historical techniques. Could it be? And I was shocked. I stood there backstage, utterly bewildered as all the people around me started clapping. And then I realized that that's my cue to go back on stage, and I start running back through that little dark hallway. So I just stood on the stage, just beaming as I got that award. And actually every picture from that moment looks like my eyes are closed because I'm smiling so wide. And they called all the winners and all the contestants on stage for one last photo. And I was still shocked. It was truly surreal. Side note, with this win, I am the Rocky Mountain region representative for the Masters of Cosplay, which takes place in MegaCon next year. At that convention, the Best in Show from 8 different cities where they have fan expos all come together, and they all compete for the Masters of Cosplay. Not to be confused with the Master Division that's in most cosplay contests. And the winner of the Masters of Cosplay gets 10,000 smackaroons. And I'm just really honored to be there. There is some crazy craftsmanship in the finals. So at the end of Saturday exhausted from all my cosplay crunching and being nervous and generally walking around the con, I again went home early. God, I'm getting old. I managed to rally one more day and to go back to the con on Sunday, where I was dressed as Pike from Vox Machina. It was also the Lord of the Rings Celebrity Day, where they were hosting most of their panels, and I think it definitely showed from how many green capes were walking around the con. I watched one last panel, which was a cosplay tips panel hosted by Altera Cosplay and Maroon Cosplays. And then I made one last trip around Fan Expo and then said goodbye to everybody. I had a great time. I had a VIP pass for the weekend that I had actually won in the 2024 prize package, and I hardly used it actually. I honestly only think the pass is worth it if you are going to get a lot of autographs, because it can cut down a 3 or 4 hour line to a 20-minute line. Otherwise, the other perks are not really worth it. It's a $500 ticket. The con itself had a really good layout for managing the crowds. I didn't feel like I was being swamped by people every day like I have at some other conventions. They had interesting programming, cool vendors and artists, and the cosplay contest ran super smoothly thanks to the coordinator, Pat. I don't really have any complaints for the weekend other than some of the weird scheduling, organizing type things. Like at one point, there were 2 panels scheduled for the same room, same time slot, and so waiting in that line was kind of a mess. But other than that, it was pretty smooth. Considering it's the biggest con in Colorado, I will most definitely be back, maybe as an attendee or maybe as something else, who knows. A huge thanks to everyone who supported my construction of Kyoshi for this con, from offering research-based advice to general emotional support. I had to overcome a lot of adversity to get Kyoshi done, so I'm pretty proud with the result, and I hope to make you proud in Orlando next year. Thank you!